Hello. I think I'm finally going to get my little bit sorted out here. Can you hear me now?
I can, you bet.
Okay. You bet. I got a little distracted.
That's all right. We're not starting just quite yet.
Yeah.
I think Luke's just doing the final touch-ups on setting everything up, and away we go.
Okay.
Yes, I am. So
oh, there he is.
Right with you. Right with you. So
I saw your videos there that you sent me the other day, Luke. I was in the middle of doing a bunch of stuff here. I didn't get a chance to. I watched the first one and only part of the second one, though.
Is that the one with Sarah, with my daughter?
Yeah.
Hey, Alex, how are you?
Not bad. Right. Keeping out of trouble.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. Yeah, actually, we're going to play that one at 1 hour in. I play video. Cool. I play video from something an hour into the show, so that's what I'm going to show because I just released it like 2 days ago. So, yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah, so we're gonna, as generally, wait a few more minutes because people tend to drift in. So just getting started here, and yeah.
Excellent.
So get going right away here. Alex, remind us again where you're coming in from today, where you're calling in from.
Elisa, you talking to me?
Yes. Yeah.
I'm here in Edmonton.
Elisa, sorry, I was reading your arm. Hey, Chris, good to see you. Oh, you're in a wow, all Canadians except for Chris. Hey, Chris.
Hey, long time no see.
Long time no see. So yeah. Okay.
Where's Chris from?
Providence.
Oh, nice.
Rhode Island? No.
Yes.
Right. Yeah.
Small state in the union, in our union.
Right. How are you feeling about the election tomorrow, Chris?
Holding my breath. I'm just waiting to see if we come to a decision or not even.
Oh yeah. I guess that's going to be part of the thing. So yeah, I'm wouldn't be surprised if there's more controversy. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah, so, no kidding, eh?
Yeah. We are going to get started shortly, and we are live on YouTube, and we are recording it. So just for you to know that. And yeah, it was interesting. I was talking to my client in Ireland this morning, and even over there, they're on pins and needles. Can't wait to find out what's going to happen. So it's like, I guess you're not exempt from it anywhere in the world. Okay, we are going to be starting in just a few minutes. So get rid of this. Okay. Make sure I put on speaker view so that's recorded properly. And might be a small talk today, or a small audience, a very intimate audience today there, Colin. So that's good.
That's all good.
Yeah, always. So, okay. Trying to think of what else I need before I get going. I have water. I have everything I need on that. So I think we're going to get started.
Excellent.
So I'm just going to bring up the image again, and just to
gotta cover up the logo.
The logo? What logo? My logo?
No.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Free advertising.
Free advertising for McDonald's. Right?
Oh, we have Mary's joining us. Excellent. That's good. So again, I'm just going to get the right slide deck opened up. We will start.
Mary, that looks like Sugarloaf Mountain behind you there. in your picture?
It's Cannon Beach.
Ah, definitely not Sugarloaf.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm just sometimes running 3 screens can be what's happening here. There we are. That's what I'm looking for. And share screen. Welcome to the Here to There show. This is the 5th installment of the Here to There show. We're going into our 2nd month, which is kind of cool. And I'm very excited that you can join me here today. And I know some of you are going to be coming in from south of the 49th parallel. And 49th parallel? No, that's not right. South of the Canadian border, because I'm up here in Canada. And we have some other Canadians on the call also. And yeah, I just want to give a brief overview as to what the Here to There show is about. It's really about how subject matter experts and entrepreneurs and consultants, blue collar, white collar, it doesn't really matter, how they move people from point A to point B. How do they take them from here to there? And hence the title of it. So my Friday segments, which is Friday is Widen Your Gaze, and Widen Your Gaze is the bigger picture. The Here to There show is more of a drill down into it and whatnot. And I have my guest today is the same speaker that's going to be presenting on Friday, and it's Colin Christopher, and he is here from Edmonton. And Colin and I have shared stages in the past. He's got me on some of his stages he's talking on. I brought him on some of my stages, and this is Colin's 2nd time with my platform specifically for the what I've been doing webinars since the beginning of the new year, or since we went into COVID. So as the first part of the show, this is really a conversation where I'm going to be interviewing Colin, and we're going to be talking about some of his background, some of his history. It's unscripted, and there's really not a presentation. It is being recorded live to YouTube, and I'm also recording it. So just for you to know that that's going on. And let's get into the show. Welcome, Colin. Thank you for being here today and joining me again.
Thank you very much for inviting me. I really appreciate it, Luke.
Yeah, you're welcome. You're welcome. So I guess the first thing I like to do when on the Here to There show is just really get some background and just to get to know you and get the audience to know you, because we will talk about your training and the other stuff that you do. And so you have a background as a hypnotherapist.
Yes, that's correct. I actually, taking a step back, my background is actually in genetics and chemistry. I have a degree in science from the University of Alberta. But during that time, actually, it even goes back before that. In high school, I used to have a teacher that used to hypnotize the entire class for relaxation. And she was actually sick one day, and the class still wanted to get hypnotized. And so one of my best friends, Nadine, she came up to me and she said, "Colin, you should try it." And I remember saying, "Well, I don't know how to do any of that." And she goes, "Just give it a shot." And I remember the rest of the class, they were like, "Yeah, Colin, yeah, do it." And, you know, this was, I think, grade 10. So I gave into that natural manipulation of peer pressure. And I copied what Mrs. Klein did, our teacher, and I hypnotized the class for relaxation. Now I realized afterwards, it's not a good idea to do that. Like it's very safe when you know what you're doing, but if you don't know what you're doing, you can put people to sleep and they have trouble waking up. But everything worked out that day because I sort of copied what she was doing. And I remember my friend Nadine afterwards, she came up to me and she said, "Colin, that was really good." And I remember thinking, "Oh, maybe I should be a hypnotist." And so fast forward, university, I was seeing shows, doing my science classes, and I really became fascinated by it. Started picking up books, reading up on it, and after university, I went back to school, became a clinical hypnotherapist, followed that path, and shortly thereafter, I started performing, and it brought me. I saw clients one-on-one for hypnotherapy, as you said, helping the common stuff: quitting smoking, losing weight, all kinds of different anxiety, fears, and phobias, performance issues. And then, started performing, went out on cruise ships, performed out there.
and I've progressed up until this point. I'm working on my 5th book now. Everything's sort of to do with hypnosis or based on my work in hypnosis and helping people. And yeah, that's me in a nutshell. It all started with my drama class back in high school.
Being being role model to you about seeing that, you're seeing what your teacher's doing. So,
actually, just last year, I like the continuation of that story. I came back to my high school last year. They hired me to do a show, and like literally 50 feet away from where I did it the first time, I got to hypnotize another set of students at high school. So it was such a cool closure event, and reinforcing everything.
Yeah, full circle, coming all the way back and whatnot.
Yeah.
There's hypnotherapy, like those shows, like what do you actually call the show? It's a
hypnosis show, yeah. Or a stage hypnosis show, yeah.
Okay, yeah. They seem to come in trends. They seem to have, there's more people doing it than not, and then I don't hear about it for a while, or maybe I'm in the wrong circles. Did you find that there's an interest that ebbs and flows?
I think from the public perspective, it does really depend a little bit on who's performing. And whether entertainment venues will actually want to do live events. In the corporate world, it's been fairly steady. I primarily do corporate stuff. Like in my beginning career, I used to do a lot more live events, like bars, nightclubs, those kinds of things. But then, so it's sort of cyclical and up and down depending on geographic location, and sort of whether there's enough performers out there doing it. It's a lot harder to get into now, because you have to, like, for somebody to start, you basically have to have an entire show developed, practiced, and tested before you can get up on stage. It's not like doing comedy or speaking or something where you can take a 5 or 10 minute speech or bit and do some open mic nights. You're the entire performance all the way through. And so it's a lot more work. And so I think that's why it sort of goes up and down, because you don't have enough people entering the market.
Okay.
That's very specialized too.
Yeah, very specialized. And I think my other just something off the top of my head in the world that we live in is, like, what does insurance look like for you?
Yeah, there's
like, how do you get insurance for that?
There is insurance, but it's a tough one to get. It's not the like I'm trying to remember the last. I don't have the number in front of me, but I think it's a couple grand a year just to do the insurance. For the therapy side, I think that's the thing too. Like, that goes up and down. The last time I did my therapy run, actually it's due in December now that I think about it. So I do have to look at this again. But I think it's just the therapeutic insurance is about $400, but the actual performing insurance is a lot more.
Right.
Yeah.
And have you ever had a performance or anything that goes sideways that you didn't see or weren't expecting? Like
yeah, like, I've been at this 22 years. There's been 3 sort of four events. Like, I've had a couple where people just got really sick, but they were drinking beforehand. So although the relaxation of the hypnosis, it increases blood flow and changes blood flow patterns. But you throw alcohol into that, and they were suddenly throwing up on my stage, kind of thing. So I've had a couple people like that. You just get them off, drink some water. They're drunk and they need that rest. 2 other events. One, I had a woman who pretended to be hypnotized and then pretended to be catatonic because she was trying to make her father angry. And so, because she was getting because you're on stage, you get this attention. I kind of saw through it right away. And then, of course, every time the father came near, she saw him, and then she would just go back down, pretending that she was still hypnotized. So there's that. So that wasn't a real reaction. And then the strangest one I've had, this was back. So I was in Mexico performing at resorts, and regular show, everything was fine. Guy came up, volunteered. And he ended up having a flashback to a knife fight that he was in at a bar 25 years before that. And it actually had nothing to do with my hypnosis. It was actually the lighting from the stage was red during the time that I was hypnotizing him. and the lighting in the bar that he was in this fight, it was also red. So the actual, just that red color triggered him back. And now his wife's favorite color was red. And so after the show, he went out and he ripped up all her clothes, cut up all her clothes, threw everything out. And this is happening. And so the wife comes and finds me after, obviously, thankfully. And she's like, this is what's happening. So he wouldn't come to see me. He thought I had this crazy, strange power, which I don't. There's a very scientific method all around it. And so anyway, we snuck up on him. I put him to sleep, and then 3 minutes later, started having the conversation with him and finding out what was going on. And it turns out he flashed back to this knife fight. So I did some hypnosis techniques to resolve the emotions around that, and to resolve the colors and everything that was triggering him. And once that was done, he was absolutely fine. Him and his wife went shopping. She got a whole new wardrobe out of the deal. She was super happy.
Right.
So that's the craziest thing that's ever happened to me in a show.
Yeah.
And like, I had no control over the light. I've never, the strangest thing can trigger somebody. I wasn't doing any age regressions. I wasn't doing anything that, because you'll see hypnotists sometimes do age regressions where they go back to the birth, like on stage, or they make them go forward in time to when they're older. That's in my opinion, it's a bit of a dangerous thing to do, because you don't know what's triggered at that specific age range. And I'm there doing a performance and doing entertainment. One, I want the audience members and the volunteers to feel good, and to have a positive experience. And doing age regression can sometimes trigger them back to negative experiences, and that's not useful. And then
nor the time of the place, nor the time.
Yeah, exactly.
For that. Did you ever feel like the responsibility might be something like, having that instant where it goes south and this guy's all of a sudden he's doing that? Did that kind of freak you out about the responsibility that you wield with that?
No, because one of the reasons I became a clinical hypnotherapist was so that I would be able to, I'd never experienced it, I'd never seen it, but I'd read about ab reactions occurring. And so I wanted to understand what they were, how they occurred, and of course, how to help somebody if it actually happened, because these people are coming up under my care up on stage. And so the training I received was extremely thorough. I did not feel nervous at all. In the training I do, you're actually, you're doing therapy on each other, you're experiencing it. And by that point, I had already been doing a practice for a few years and had seen lots of clients. So I understand thoroughly how to help somebody in a strange reaction. And in 22 years, like I said, that's the only reactions I've had. And I'm very careful to wake people up properly. I'm very careful to, like I said, back in from my high school days, not really understanding it, that people can have trouble waking up. There can be all these other things can happen. And I wanted to be responsible and ethical about it.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And as we would hope everyone would be, but sometimes that doesn't happen.
Well, I think the challenge is for a lot of newer hypnotists, they don't do the therapy training, and so they'll start doing shows, and you can do like I said, 22 years I've had those few reactions, and so you could be doing shows for a very long period of time before you can have a problem. And if you don't know how to handle it at that point, you panic, because it's like, well, this has never happened before. I don't know what to do.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Mm-hmm. It is something you have to train for.
I would, like I said, I would hope so.
Well,
so
it's like an airline pilot. Like you're flying, you do all the flight simulators, you train for all the brutal scenarios, contingencies and everything else, so that if and when they happen, they're very rare, but then you're prepared for them.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So whenever I think hypnosis, I think of people being susceptible and being easily influenceable. What are your thoughts on that?
So it's a bit of a misnomer that you're easily influenced or that you're of low intelligence. It's actually, there's 3 hypnotizability levels. There's low, mid, and highly hypnotizable. And for highly hypnotizable is about 15% of the population. They can, without ever being hypnotized before, it usually takes 1 to 3 minutes at most. And like they're very fast. Has nothing to do with intelligence, just whether they can get into that state or not. The mid hypnotizable is about 70% of the population. It usually takes them 3 minutes to 10 minutes to get hypnotized the first time. And then low hypnotizable is about the other 15% of the population. Can take up to an hour, 10 minutes to an hour, or multiple times before they get hypnotized. Now we've done like brain scans as people are being hypnotized, and different parts of your brain are lit up as you're being hypnotized. Very similar to meditation, similar centers are being lit up and being activated. So, there are people who try to meditate and aren't good at it, take multiple times before they start feeling the benefits. And there's other people that it's just like almost immediate. Same with yoga and those kinds of things. So it's really about practice and develop your mind in that direction.
Can you tell me a bit more and help me understand the correlation between meditation and being like, I've never heard that. And I don't know if I've ever heard anyone suggest that people are easily hypnotizable or lower intelligence. That feels kind of novel to me. It's not that it's not out there. I just never came across that before.
I can see the correlation. I'm out there doing it. Yeah, it happens all the time, but it's, in terms of meditation correlated, really about meditation, it's about putting yourself into an altered state of awareness. You got alpha, beta, delta, theta, different brain states for when, depending on your conscious level. And very similar to hypnosis, you're putting yourself into an altered state of awareness. So it's really about manipulating yourself within what altered state of awareness you want to get to. So same with going to sleep. When you go to sleep, you're putting yourself into an altered state of awareness. Your brain waves change. When you're really focused on something, you're in an altered state of awareness. When you're sitting there typing away at the computer or watching TV, you're in an altered state of awareness. And so hypnosis is really about, and meditation in its own way, about putting yourself deliberately into an altered state of awareness, or by accident too. I mean, it certainly happens when you're watching TV. You can be in an altered state of awareness by accident because you're just watching and you're zoned out. Same with Zoom.
Right. Oh, same with Zoom. Oh, really? Actually, there's something I heard about TV that is the reason why it's, I don't want to use the word addictive, but that people are drawn to it is that it has the same frequency or something of a sleep zone, like pre-sleep. Have you ever heard anything like this, or I'm not sure?
I've sort of heard it, but I don't know if it's, I don't know how accurate it is.
Yeah.
I would almost put we're visual creatures. And so visual cues, like I do the same thing in shows. If I can do visuals, are always very powerful to help people relax or alter their state of consciousness. And so like that's why people use the pocket watch or focus on the pen or the pencil or something like that, because it's a visual that allows you to be drawn to something very specific. But you don't have to be, you can have your eyes closed and be hypnotized just as easily.
Oh, I see. Okay. Yeah. So it's that drawn in and kind of fixate on something, and that kind of makes you open up to it.
Yeah, it's that point of focus. Yeah.
Okay. You have a great story that I've heard you say on at least one occasion about working on cruise ships and your being kind of inherently shy when you're first and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
You want to just...
Yeah, I remember. So it was my first. It was my first day on a cruise ship, and I remember talking to the cruise director, and he goes, "Okay, so part of your duties are going to be, interacting and schmoozing with guests. The part of the guest experience. It was a Celebrity Cruise Lines at the time, was to be able to connect with crew, staff, entertainers, everybody. Like it was almost like the family experience." And I remember saying, like, Dave was his name. He said, or no, I told Dave, I said, well, that's not why I wasn't told any of this before I came. I'm not really good at that kind of, and I was much younger back then. I'm not good at this stuff. I actually have really, social anxiety. And he goes, well, you're either going to get out of it or you're going to go home, because it's is the way we are. And I'm like, wow, I almost didn't make it past my first day here. And so I said, well, okay, I'll figure this out. And so if you've been on a cruise ship before, the top deck's usually a pool deck, or one of the top decks is a pool deck. And it's my first day, and later this afternoon, I'm looking around. I was like, who am I going to talk to? Who am I going to talk to? And I remember seeing like this older lady in a wheelchair, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna go talk to her, because like if I screw it up, she can't chase me. I'm gonna get out of there. Like, I'm just gonna book it, gone. And I remember just sitting there chatting, and she was super nice, like super, because I just walked up to her and just said, hi, how you doing? And we just started, like, she was a really good conversationalist, so it made it easy for me. And so we just chatted, and then I kept on going to like seniors of advanced age, like oxygen bottles, like anybody I could get away from really fast. And so we just chatted. And I'd ask about
nice
the grandkids,
criteria.
the weather. Yeah. That was it. If I can run away, you're the person I'm talking to. That's what made me feel safe in the beginning. And so, weather, grandkids, all, where, you've been on cruises before, all the standard stuff. And then I realized, these conversations are getting boring and repetitive, because it is the same. I'm asking the exact same questions and trying to get the stuff going. And I started learning how to develop the conversations in different directions, bridge the conversations in different ways. And then I started talking to younger people, and just, all different spectrums because I started getting comfortable with it. It's like anything else. The more you do it, that fear sort of starts leaving you. I think Bob Proctor likes to call it the terror barrier for salespeople. And it's really about just being comfortable and getting out of your own head. And I was definitely in my own head all the time at that point in time about, like, who am I I'm going to talk to these seniors in wheelchairs, because that's the only people I feel safe around.
Right.
But over the span of 2 years, I got, I was having 30, 40, 50 conversations a day with different people, and got really good at it really fast. And it was comfortable. Like, we were just having these safe, comfortable conversations. And I learned to, I could take a conversation in any direction I wanted it to go, because I was just practicing it day in, day out. It was awesome. It was one of the best things I ever did.
Right. Well, that's what I was just going to say, is who knew what a pleasant outcome of being forced to do something, literally getting out of your comfort zone, and being like, you have to, if you want the job, this is part of the gig.
Well, that's exactly it. I'm like, I'm in the Caribbean, like different port every day. It was amazing. Like, I'm staying. I'm finding a way to stay.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not getting kicked out of this. Yeah.
I always find it interesting when people tell me when they're in a role, in a position where they have to be very public or out there, and they say they're real introverts. That always kind of, like, because I'm an extrovert, quite, like, I like the definition of an extrovert as someone that recharges by being around people. An introvert is somebody that recharges by being by themselves. And so under that definition, I am definitely in it. I don't want to be by myself. I want to have that. So do you find that that's a norm, or there's a lot of people that are introverts, and especially comedians? Like, I know you don't consider yourself a comedian, but you hear comedians say that all the time, is that they're definitely afraid of people and going, what on earth are you doing then? Is it self-therapy? Like,
well, I find comedians I know a lot of comedians and friends with them, just being on the road and that kind of stuff. And
I bet.
Yeah, I think a lot of comedians a lot of times get into comedy because they're actually doing therapy on themselves, because if you start listening to their stories and what they're putting out there, it's typically things that they've had challenges with. This is very similar to actually public speakers in a lot of different ways, or a lot of similar ways, I should say. But like myself personally, because I've been thinking about that over the last 7 months with the sort of the entertainment, the live event stuff being shut down. And I do take a certain amount of energy from, being on stage, doing the public performance. And I also do take a certain amount of energy from just being by myself and recovering in that introvert space. But I think as I look at all that, it's really, for me, it's more of a mindset of what is it I want to give to, whether I'm, in a group or by myself. and what is it that I'm looking to do for myself or participate in for myself. If I'm by myself and I'm reading or something like that, maybe that can be considered introverted, but it's energy giving, because I'm looking to improve something within my life, or just watching TV and I'm just looking to just, zone out or whatever.
Right.
But at the same time, on a stage, doing live events, in the beginning, I would say it was more about like, the audience gratification and, look at me up above the stage. But that went away very fast, probably within my first 2 years, because it just becomes repetitive. And I realized if I was using that as the fuel for the next, 18, 20, 50 years, like I want to be doing this. I want to be performing 10 days after I'm gone. Like that's
Right.
where I'm at.
Right.
And I realized that I needed to be looking at what is it I really want to be? What is it I really want to gain from being up on stage? And it was really about connecting with people, helping people, similar to what, doing the cruise ships and talking to people. What is it I wanted? I wanted that connection. I wanted those relationships. I wanted people to be better, be a little bit better in some way, shape, or form, whether it was a show, just entertained and laughing more, or doing a speaking gig or a training or whatever it is. How can I get them to be just a little bit better than they were before? And that gives me energy. So it is really about mindset for me now, or at least now that I've had the opportunity to observe it over the last few months, versus being an introvert or an extrovert. It's how I'm approaching the situation.
Okay.
And what I want to get. Mm-hmm.
And a lot of what you talk about is seems to be coming from a being service mindset to help people out to be. Would you consider yourself that's a service mindset of trying to make people's lives better?
That's a good question. I don't know if I consider, I think it's actually that the phrase, leave somebody a little bit better before when you met them. The first time I heard it was actually, I was reading, what was the book called? The Game by Neil Strauss. It's about Neil Strauss is a pickup artist. And I met him about 3 or 4 years ago, just very briefly when I was down in Los Angeles. And his mantra has always been just leave somebody a little, although you have this perception of pickup artists being very slimy and those kinds of things, and understandably so, because there's a lot of weird, crazy stuff that goes on in that industry or in that lifestyle. But that mantra of just leave somebody a little bit better, there's something about it that just feels better. So I don't know if it's a service, but there's been many interactions I've had in life, many relationships where the person I've met or interacted with has not left me feeling a little bit better than I was before meeting them or interacting with them. And I didn't want to have to put somebody through what I went through, that feeling of not feeling better because of that interaction with that person. And so I don't know if it's partly service, but I think it's just a general outlook in life.
Right.
Right. Because I think if you leave somebody feeling better, that sort of karma, something's going to be good for you as well, because they're feeling better, you're feeling better, and that just keeps on reinforcing itself over time.
Yeah, and for me, it's being a person of increase. It's like increase on there. And I'm probably not going to quote it correctly, but it's like this idea of if somebody's going to suck the life out of you, hopefully they would take some fat also. It's like, if they're gonna make, if they're just gonna detract from you, well, there should be something good that comes out of that also.
Liposuction.
Liposuction. That's right.
One thing I think about there though too. I wish I did it all the time. I wish I was like it's a great mantra to have or a great thought process to have, but I don't, unfortunately, I don't do it all the time. I'm not always in the right mindset. I don't know if anybody else, in the world can claim that they're always in that mindset, but it's just about incrementally doing a little better than before.
Right. And having an intent of wanting to, it's one of my favorite sayings about volunteering is volunteering is how you pay for your time on the planet. And it's this idea that if you can give back, or not, if you can, I think we have a duty or an obligation, if we have the capacity and we have the latitude to give back on that, because it's something that we're all in this together.
Yeah, absolutely. I think too, I'm really guilty of this, and it's something over the last few months I've just been really thinking about, is also leaving myself just a little bit better than I was when I first, because like there's been a lot of negative, like you're familiar with like the stuff going on with my family and all that.
Yeah.
If people want to know, we can delve into that a bit, but that negative self-talk is something that doesn't leave me better. It's and so really being conscious of that is not the easiest thing.
Well, I firmly believe that when we're under stress, we fall back on old patterns of behaviors.
Oh yeah,
as a
absolutely.
as a coping mechanism. And one of the and you have been under a lot of stress because yeah, Colin is not only taking care of both of his parents in his house, in his residence. He's taking care of both of them, and they're not even married anymore. He's also been recently responsible for taking care of the family estate and putting that away. And you're
actually, they are still married, but they just don't get along.
Okay. Okay. Were they living together before?
No, they haven't lived together in
right.
quite some time. Yeah. But they're living together now.
They're living together now in your house. In my house.
Yeah. They have their own separate spaces, so it makes it a little easier. Yeah.
But even having them there and how medically fragile they are, which really stopped you of just being able to go out and be social. And it was like, if we wanted to meet, it was like, you had to always have that, that lens on of taking care of your parents and whatnot. So it would seem to me that this is a extraordinary, time in your life where you're having to, you're not working because there's no gigs out there to do stuff, and then
all the live events gone,
right on that. So yeah, it would I guess if you said everything's tickety boo and you're not having any negative self-talk, I'd say LLPOF, liar liar pants on fire.
Well, I always find that interesting too, like, because I've seen lots of speakers over the years, and like there's always once in a while that, oh, everything's rosy, everything's great, and it's like, what life? Like, I've never met anybody in real life that can claim that everything is awesome all the time.
Yeah.
And I would rather just be honest and just say, it's not happening all the time.
Yeah, and do you deny that you're in denial? Sorry, I should have.
That's a good one. I like that. Yeah. Good timing on my coffee.
Yeah, I almost got to see the come out through his nose on that. So let's circle back to you. You had said that you do corporate training and whatnot. So let's talk about what that looks like. And where do you find these? Is it word of mouth? Is it from your stage presentations? Like where do you get these gigs?
So primarily, what I've done, as I was performing, doing stage hypnosis shows, and this was right after my first book, Success Through Manipulation, is my first book. I'll tell people just quickly about that, because like success is the easy part, but the manipulation, I get people feel uncomfortable with that.
Yeah, it pulls them sideways for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, like there's peer pressure, bullies. I mean, right now with all the political stuff going on, I don't want to get into politics, so I won't. But I mean, like media manipulates emotions all over the place on both sides, regarding politics and all that. But there's constructive manipulation as well. Like for example, like when you're driving, you manipulate, the steering wheel, the gears, gas, brakes, all that kind of stuff to get to where you're going. If you manipulate like a world-class race car driver, you're going to win the race. If you manipulate bad though, you crash. So manipulation is really more about what you how you interact with what you have access to, like physical things like driving, emotional things like bullies, peer pressure, family, all those kinds of things, and then thinking habits. Thinking habits manipulate you, and you can manipulate them depending on what you're doing. And so I wrote my entire book, Success Through Manipulation, was how to identify the thinking habits that are manipulating you and keeping you from the success that you want. And then from identifying them, how do you get around them? How do you manipulate yourself to be more successful? And so as I was, doing shows, promoting that book and started doing some speaking gigs, people kept asking me, well, how do I hypnotize somebody to buy my stuff? And I ignored that question for a long time, but people kept asking it. And I finally realized, these people aren't asking how to hypnotize somebody to buy their stuff. What they're really asking is, how do I connect with somebody on an emotionally intelligent, genuine level, so that person actually likes me, that they're my friend, and vice versa. And then because there's this natural friendship, they naturally want to buy my stuff. And so, after thinking about that, I started looking at my clients, what they were seeing me for, their self-confidence issues, their sales issues, because I did see a lot of salespeople for getting through, the terror barrier stuff, and it's different for seasoned salespeople as it compared to newer salespeople. But there's always psychological challenges to selling, and so I developed an entire program based on. Partly, that my cruise ship days of going out and just talking to people and being able to just guide a conversation exactly where I want it to go. But really about how to actually connect with somebody on that emotionally intelligent, genuine level, so that person likes you in a natural way. Like we can all think of a friend that we met like 20 years ago that we haven't seen, but we were really good friends with them. And then, you bump into them. Well, maybe not so much with COVID now, but you pick up the phone and you chat and you have this. It's like no time has passed because the connection is there. The emotional connection, the emotional entanglement is all existing. It's a real, genuine friendship. And we can think of really charismatic people that we've met, and it's really easy to connect with them because that emotional connection is there. And so the entire training that I do is built on how to duplicate that in a real way. It's called manipulate the sale. And I use the term manipulation to get you thinking as we started, but it's really about navigating that entire process to develop the relationship in a real way, so that you can connect and sell. And so I do that with corporate training. Now, typically people hire me based on they see me do a speech or a shorter training, and then there's a few different modalities that I use in terms of like a 2-month program. I do have a year-long program as well that I've developed. But I typically steer people to the 8-week program before doing the year-long program because it's the natural progression. If that makes sense. So that's how I do it. But it's mostly people at live events. So since live events have been on the back burner, it's been a little bit. I haven't really done a lot of that training portion.
It's something I say to people all the time is that we're need-driven organisms. We're always looking to fill our needs, right? And it's always, and one of my other things I say is that we're all tuned into one radio station and one radio station only, WIIFM. What's in it for me, right? And so I think the word manipulation has a connotation that's really about power over and using your influence and somehow being able to take advantage of people on that. But if we really look at it, we are always manipulating our environment for our own best interest. And there's something, this might be a bit of a rabbit hole to go into, but this idea that children never lie, which is not true. Children lie all the time.
I've never heard that.
There's a train of thought out there that children are just honest, and this is a while ago, but it was a belief that children won't say anything to further their cause or something on that, and children will manipulate parents left, right, and center all the day long.
Absolutely.
On that. So really if we remove manipulate and look at how we're meeting our needs met, and then sometimes is that a healthy way to meet our needs or is it not healthy?
And
well, go ahead.
I was going to say, like, one of the reasons I chose the word manipulation as well is because you can pick up books, like there are all kinds of like there's influence, persuasion, all these softer words that make it feel acceptable for people. But I didn't want it to be acceptable. I wanted you to think when you heard the word, why is he using manipulation? I wanted you to understand that just that word incites an emotional response, whether it's positive or negative. And I, doing this now for as long as I have, I get tons of positive connotations. I get tons of negative. I remember when we first met, you felt
Yeah,
uncomfortable with it.
I was definitely not a fan of the word. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah.
But it was also very controversial. It got me on a lot of TV and radio and all kinds of.
I was just going to ask about where
Mm-hmm.
tell us about some of those speaking gigs that you've had. You've been on every major network in the United States. Is that not true?
Yeah, pretty much. I've done over 100 TV interviews, so it's been all I've been all over the place. It was, the neatest thing. So there's two ways it happened. One, they would we'd send them a book, with a bunch of pitches. Sometimes we just talk about the books. Sometimes they want me to hypnotize somebody on air. So I remember it was always fascinating when so we'd have this criteria of like, okay, we need some volunteers to hypnotize. When we get there, I need, 10, 15 minutes ahead of time to make sure I can hypnotize them. So they're prep for air. Because like realistically, it's going to take, especially if they've never been hypnotized before, it's going to take a little bit of time. And I remember one of the first times I showed up, they didn't have a volunteer, which is very common. They don't usually have volunteers, although they say they're going to have one, they never do. And so, because they just grab an intern, because they're like, interns don't matter in their mind. And so that was the first time they give me this intern, lovely young woman. I think I can't remember her name offhand, but she was like 19 years old, fresh out of university. And they're like, okay, you're going to get hypnotized by this guy, Colin. But the only place we got to do it, like you got to prep ahead of time. The only place we got is this closet, like that's quiet where I can be uninterrupted. So they're like, okay, get into this closet with this stranger who's twice your age. Well, not quite twice the age at that time, but or you're not going to be able to work here tomorrow. Like all the things that could just freak a person out. Absolutely. And so, I remember using, and if I hadn't had all that cruise ship experience and being able to guide somebody around within 8 minutes, I had a woman who was panicking, freaking out about going, and rightly so. Like
No
they
kidding.
should, like I don't know what they were thinking when they said get in the closet with this strange man who's gonna put you to sleep, quote unquote. So
Oh my God.
anyway, turned it around, got her very relaxed. She was great on TV. And then afterwards, of course, it's not just about the initial portion. It's also about debriefing and making sure she felt okay with everything afterwards. Because that's it's the same with like corporate sales or anything else like that I deal with, is people forget about once they get a sale, you still have a conversation, you still have a relationship, and that's that's where a lot of sales processes break down, I think, at the end, because that last continuation step to ensure that you get the referrals, to ensure that they feel like they were cherished and they feel like you're still their friend, which is genuinely, if that's what you're doing, and they would go through that process. But if they don't go through that, that's where that whole breakdown occurs. And that's why a lot of people don't get the referrals, because they don't continue the relationship once they get the sale. And so I had to continue the relationship with this lovely, well, obviously afterwards, to ensure that she felt everything was okay. And
you left her whole and complete.
Yeah, absolutely. Because that's just the right thing to do. What you would do with any friend.
Right. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. On that. And that goes back to the responsibility that I think, about how, leaving people intact or not doing damage to them and whatnot. And that's just on a side note. This is actually my biggest bone of contention with weekend workshops. Is that you bring people together and then you have some sort of pseudo intimacy, and my experience has been of all the facilitation I've done in groups is that people are just waiting to emote and express their pain and their suffering, and I think, and if you put people in a room and give them pseudo intimacy, like there's this kind of feelings of talking, then people are just going to start. They're just going to start emoting, and often what comes with that is that they're like emotionally bleeding, and now they're worse off than when they started that weekend, because the facilitator has, unbeknownst to, or doesn't, somehow opened up a wound that they didn't know, and they maybe didn't get ahead of it or didn't see it coming or whatnot. But it's like it's I think it's irresponsible for people to bring others for a weekend and then just get them to talk and then send them on their way.
Well, I'll take that a step further. I've seen lots of facilitators, speakers, those kinds of things, open the wounds on purpose. And because the wounds are open, then because
Make a sale.
Make the sale, and you're emotionally compromised instead of doing it. Would a friend do that to you? No, a friend wouldn't do that to you.
Yeah.
And that's why the friend is trusted, and these guys aren't trusted in the long run.
Well, and there would be a good example of a negative connotation of manipulation.
Yeah, absolutely.
That it was really as purposeful and intentional, get them, tear down the walls, rip it down, and then basically hope, and then offer a solution to them on that when they are not in a place to make a really good decision, because
Yeah. And I know where they don't have the money. It's like, oh, just borrow the money. It
Yeah.
doesn't matter if you don't have the money. Like, oh, that one drives me nuts. It's like, yeah, it does matter, especially these days. It does matter if you don't have the money, because you're taking somebody's groceries.
Yeah, absolutely. And then there's that whole thing that Freud would talk about, CounterTransference, where you transference on this kind of stuff, right? Which I'm not sure if that's still seen out there as much on that. But
I've actually seen some of these guys have like mortgage brokers and financiers at the end of the event to help people remortgage their house to pay for their programs.
Oh my God.
Yeah, like
to pay for the programs?
To pay for their programs that they're charging, $75,000 or $100,000 for, and these people think that they're going to be the next best thing since sliced bread. And like this is primarily in the coaching realm that I see this, because coaches are it's pretty easy to be in a vulnerable space, because I think it's like 50,000 people become coaches per year on average, something. I don't know the exact number.
Yeah.
And 50,000 people leave the coaching industry per year, because it's not an easy thing, but these guys make it sound like an easy thing, and we'll teach you how to do the entire arc all the way through, and it's going to cost you 75 grand or 100,000 or whatever. Like, this was, I'm trying to remember, 5-6 years ago now, so it's probably even more money now. But imagine being able to putting somebody in such an emotionally vulnerable state that they're going to remortgage their house, and having
so
people
convinced that is the
yeah.
answer.
That is pure manipulation in my mind. Like the best example of negative manipulation I've ever seen.
Yeah. Actually, I'm it's new information. I've never heard that before, but I'm not surprised. Unfortunately, that's really a bit of a drag. We're coming up about 9 minutes to the top of the hour, and then what we're just to just let everyone know who's on the call, and just to remind everyone that may not know this, at top of the hour, I'm going to just play a quick video, and it's kind of the marker, and it's something I do a bit different. And then what we're going to do is you guys have the opportunity to ask Colin questions about what's coming up on Friday, or about sales, that kind of stuff. And if you spend the rest of the second hour asking Colin questions, that's great. I'll ask some more questions. And if that that runs its natural course, then then we have the opportunity to ask me any questions on executive coaching or video production, and then we'll just go that way on that. So let's talk before we open it up and show the vid. We'll open the questions up in the second half, but before we do that, let's talk about what people can expect on Friday. Not to give away the whole presentation, but so it's the talk on Friday. Let me just get the
it's outperforming the competition.
Yeah,
7
I want to get the
steps to
visual.
increase your sales. Oh, okay. You want to pop up? Yeah.
I get the visual on this. So just keep talking about it. I'm just going to get.
Yeah, sure. So it's called Outperforming the Competition: 7 steps to increase your sales by 200%. So as I was talking, it's interesting, as I was talking about the some of the coaches that sell their training for like 75 grand with the financing on the side and all those kinds of things. One of the sort of structures that these guys use is similar to this. So we're going to be talking about a 7-step process to put whatever it is that you're selling into a specific framework, so that you can sell more of your stuff. And like, without giving stuff away, like the first thing, like it's actually step number 4. It's the emotional impact of what we're talking about. So for example, the guy who does that $75,000 program, I don't know how much it is now. It's probably much more than that, actually. I'm not going to say what it is too, because I don't want to be sued.
Or give
but,
many advertising.
Yeah, or give them any advertising. But one of the things is the emotional impact of what it is that you're saying and connecting with. And so whatever it is that you happen to be selling, you want to be able to connect on an emotional level. Now, this can be a positive emotion or a negative emotion, depending on what it is, because there's that fear of loss, hope for reward that everybody's sort of familiar with, or heard. Typically, everybody's heard that phrase, or the carrot or the stick method. So it's really about garnering that emotional impact. So we go through 7 different steps. What I want to do is, everybody who's there, I want you to apply it specifically to your own business and whatever it is that you're selling. So we'll go through that entire process so that you can actually go turn around after the seminar or after the event and actually start using it in your business to see the results. Because I'm always a big fan of being able to take something and use it immediately. Because if I was actually just on a webinar, I think on this weekend, that talked about a sales process for speakers. I was like, oh, maybe I'll get something good out of it. And the entire, like, it was over an hour, and there was not a single actionable thing that this person talked about that I could apply to my business directly. So I felt like I wasted my entire hour.
And they were wanting you to sign on to the program.
Yeah, signed on to the program, but there's no. It's like, how do I sign on to something where I can't see how to use it actionably in my own business?
Right.
And that's I think a lot of people fall into that of give the people whoever's watching, participating, give them something they can use and implement right away. Because if you can experience it, use it, implement. Oh, I just made some money. Maybe I don't increase my sales by 200% within the first. Like, I'd be impressed if anybody can do it within the first day, obviously. But like, typically, if you do the process that we put through and then refine it, and I'll give you I'll give everybody some opportunity to think about how to refine it, how to evaluate it, so that later on it's like, well, if I just increased my sales, well, what else can he help me do? And then it's a natural next progression into the other sales training, because then you actually feel like, oh, I can actually use it. I can do it. Okay, there's something here that's useful. I hate when people give me nothing.
Yeah. Well, and the thing too is that although it may be a free webinar, it's not free because you're asking for people's time.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, and the thing that somebody was quite a big influence on me when it came to the online space and how to position yourself in the market was Brendan Bouchard, no relation, out of California. When I went and saw him, and Brendan was very clear. He was, and it's a model I use, is like, give your best stuff away for free. Give it away for free. Bring so much value that they're going to love you. And it's the idea, if you get this, and it's like literally saying, hey, if you enjoyed that, then I have more that we can do with that. But going and having an hour and this, hoarding onto their material and whatnot that you can't walk away with is, it's really a scarcity mindset in so many ways.
Yeah. Well, I'll take that a little step further. It's not just give your best stuff away for free, but I don't even think it has to be the best stuff. I think it has to be give the stuff that is most useful for the people on there.
Yeah.
Participating, because they're there for a specific reason. If it's useful and actionable. I mean, Wayne Dyer as an example. He always gave lots of free talks and free things, and he gave lots of great stuff. But if you weren't in a spot to receive it, it wasn't valuable to you. So it's got to be valuable to the listener.
Good point. Excellent point. So you're going to be giving people some tangible items that they can do, some skills that they can walk away and start applying and whatnot. And,
absolutely.
Yeah.
For anybody watching right now, think of like, what is it that you're selling, and have that, think about that over the next few days. And when we're here on Friday, we're going to go into that, and we'll be interacting, and we'll be using people's real life examples.
So it's a much more hands-on presentation than just kind of sit here and listen and take that. I know I will certainly be using it for my
Yeah,
business.
yeah. Expect to participate. Expect to like. We're going to be talking about your like. I don't know how many people are going to be there, but I'll do my best to use people as examples and that kind of stuff. But we're going to be using your stuff.
Right.
Because it's not useful if I can tell you how to increase your sales by 200%, but you're not selling anything.
Yeah, that's right.
Or you don't. Yeah, like it's got to be something that you're selling versus what somebody else is selling.
Fantastic. So that is, as we come to the top of the hour, that is 1 o'clock Mountain Standard Time, same time as the Here to There show. And that's on this Friday coming up. So on that note, I'm going to see that we're close enough to the top of the hour. I'm going to be showing a video. It's a video I released 2 days ago, which was Halloween. And it's actually and if anyone, just warn you, there's a lot of skeletons in it. The skeletons are not necessarily doing anything scary, but there are a lot of skeletons. And the voiceover is actually my daughter who did the voiceover on it. So I'm going to show that now, and I'm just going to go use the washroom really quick. So I'm going to turn off my video, but I will be back. And so let me just get this ready on this. So share screen. Okay. And okay. Life lessons from Phil, the skeleton. Nope, hold it. That's not the one I wanted. 1 second, I queued up the wrong one.
I was going to say your daughter has a very deep voice.
I know, it's kind of like, so just bear with me as I get the right one here.
Was that a pun on bare bones?
Yeah, bear with me. Yes, right. Exactly. Okay. Okay.
Life lesson.
Okay. We have it set up now. Like let me try that again. Okay. And just give me a thumbs up, Colin, if you can hear the sound.
Life lessons from Phil, the skeleton. Hi, my name is Sarah. This is a story from my good friend Phil, the skeleton. He asked me to share this with you today because he believes that there are good messages sent to the world, but not many people speak Phil, so he asked me to translate. He says that you will have good days and you will have bad days. As you climb the ladder of life, you will make friends and you'll lose friends. Phil says that you will hit pay dirt and be broke, but travel in first class. Sometimes you will feel like life is grilling you and that you're in the dumps. So listen to what I'm going to tell you. It will keep you from losing your head. Phil's advice. Be afraid. Never wait to go to sleep until you're bushed, because you may wake up on the wrong side of the bed. Learn to relax so that you don't come apart. Remember that good mental health is about facing your demons, because if you don't, you may sell yourself out. Phil says, always be very studious with what you do, but stay away from bad influences. It will stop you from being adrift and help you keep your cool. Do your best to find your peers. Remember to wear a mask when socially distancing. Always try your best, even when you think nothing will come of it. Stay away from fad diets. They don't work. Take time to play fetch and pay attention to your pets, or they will leave you. Don't wait until you're dirt tired to go to bed, because you will wake up a bear. Keep your family close and the holiday spirit all year long. Try not to be camera shy. Make sure to get caught up with friends. Show up fully and always leave intact. Phil says to be a shining light to others. As you work hard to drum up business, don't forget that you rock. And always, always, travel in love. Feel free to quote us on these. La fin.
So, thank you for indulging me in that. Just a little background on that. So when I started, when I went and saw Brendan Bouchard 7 years ago, the same guy, he impressed upon me the importance of videos. So I came back, bought a whole bunch of video gear, and then started shooting videos because I put myself out as a coach there, specifically for men. And so I started producing content. I took on a 72-day challenge for 72 days. I uploaded content to YouTube just to get used to being on camera. And a few years after that, I was trying to find a different way for engagement. So I started doing these videos with quotes. And if you've been to my other Here to There show, you see the quotes, the videos I'm talking about. But I had all these images of the skeleton and doing stuff with the skeleton that I accumulated over the years. And I thought, yeah, I'll try and do something with it. So, and then I had my daughter do the voiceover on and whatnot. So yeah, so that's what that was about. And it was just trying to be creative. And really it's about trying to see what sticks and doesn't stick, what will have impact and what won't have impact. And so I think so often we're so afraid to try things because we're worried that we're going to fall on our face. And stuff I've tried that I've been successful with, and stuff that hasn't, that I thought I was going to be successful with, I haven't been, and stuff that I didn't think was going to be successful has been. So it's just like you never know until you try, and that's the point to it all. So okay, so now what we're going to do is open the question up for anyone on the floor that wants to, or in the room that has any questions for Colin. So, and if get you to just unmute your unmute and just ask the question. And Colin, you just froze. So, oh, there you are. Okay. Okay.
Sorry, I just realized my phone wasn't on Do Not Disturb, so I thought I'd pop it back off.
Got it. So, questions from anyone in the audience?
Those are great questions.
It's interesting because there was a guy that he attends my webinars a lot. Like he comes, and he was on, I think it was one of my guest speakers, and we asked if there were any questions, and there was pretty much the same answer. There was silence on that, and it was like, okay, I guess we knocked it out of the park. And what he said is that because now we're asking questions doesn't necessarily mean we don't have them. We're just trying to formulate them on that. So I have to be a bit more patient on that. So Chris, go ahead.
So how do you deal with people who could really use training, say couple $1,000s worth of training, $20,000, $100,000, but they can't really afford it, and they have to borrow it. And I've seen, I mean, it sounds like you don't push people to do that, but I have seen, I had another company kind of encourage me to just do this kind of thing on credit card, and I'm not going to name it.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's a good question. I mean, there's so many companies that do push people to put it on credit card, mortgage, borrow it wherever. So we talked about it earlier where I said, I always want to leave somebody, or my mantra is to leave somebody better than they were when they first met me. And so for me personally, it doesn't do anybody a service to put them into debt. Like a lot of because of the nature of my clients, a lot of it is corporate money is typically a lot. It's harder to get corporate money because their purse strings. You have to really convince them that what they're getting is worth it. But once you're past that point, it's a lot easier because corporations typically have a lot of money. And so because they have a lot of money, they can also afford to be discerning. And so when I'm dealing with corporations, I don't have that same challenge. Now, when I'm dealing with individuals, it's what's the next logical step. So if you don't have money for let's say for a day training, then maybe maybe you just get the book first. Maybe that's the next logical step for you. And you take that book and you read it. And I've got some free stuff that I have on my website, like 5 Days to Better Sales Ways, that you can do. It's free, and you can start implementing that kind of stuff. And typically people who just do that training in itself will find that they increase their sales between 2 and 5% within a couple of weeks, provided they do what I tell them to do and they implement it and work with it with whatever it is that they're selling. And so over time, I say, well, you know, my next program is going to be at a specific date, or the next program after that. I'm always going to offer my program. I don't have this, oh, this will never be offered at this price again kind of stuff. But that's just I always find that that's such a cheesy sales tactic. Realistically, why would somebody who's selling something never offer this product again? Of course, they're going to offer this product again because it's a moneymaker for them. That's you know, McDonald's will never have French fries again because everybody loves them. BS. They're going to have them again. And so I always have I have the next program again. Say when you're ready and you've made the money, do these next steps, then you participate in the next program. That's the next logical step. And then that creates that creates real trust. It creates real friendship. And moving forward, maybe they'll be ready. Maybe they won't be. I focus on helping them best I can. And maybe they'll come to me, maybe they won't, or maybe they'll refer me, maybe they won't. But I also focus on my own stuff and how I'm going to build my business. So that's what I focus on. And the right clients will do come to me when they can afford it.
I recall a sales process I was in. It was I was in university, and this is before we had online dating. This is when we had personal ads to try and find relationships.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a company that was national here in Canada. I don't know if they might have probably started in the States and whatnot, but it was a dating service where they were there was a match. They would find matches for you through their system and everything. Yeah. And it was kind of very interesting because they brought you into a room and you had to fill out the questionnaire, and then they took the questionnaire away to crunch the numbers, and there was a binder in the middle of the table with all the success stories of all the people that have fallen in love and all that kind of stuff. And it was like, what else are you going to do? Because we didn't have cell phones back then, right? So it was just like, okay, so I'm going to look at the book and whatnot. And the interesting thing about the questionnaire is, like I mentioned, I was university. Their questions was not very sophisticated. Every fourth there's questions on 4 categories: financial beliefs on finances, beliefs on risk. I forget what they were, but they were very obvious that every 4th question was always going to be about finances, and there's only going to be about if you're a risk taker or if you're an introvert or extrovert, that kind of stuff. So it wasn't even that clever as to how they asked the questions. And so the woman came back, she was on commission, and it was this whole, well, you know, I think we should do this and we should go forward, and this is our guarantees. And for a student, it was like a couple grand, and that was like, we're talking like a while ago, and that's still a lot of money today, but still a lot. It was even a lot more money back then. And it was just like, you know, I'm not prepared to agree to this today. I'm going to think about it. And if you're as good as you think you are, if you're as good as that, then people will come back. So when I wasn't prepared to sell, or wasn't prepared to buy, the tactic that she used was, and I'm not sure what it is, but it was just like, well, I don't care if you buy, but really you have to ask yourself, Luke, if the reason that you're not prepared to do this is because you're afraid to take a risk. And it's just like, my history of taking risk is not the issue here. That's not the issue. And if you think a psych assessment, a pseudo psych assessment is going to actually determine whether or not I'm a risk taker, then you really, like, you're off the mark here. And I when she said that, I said, okay, I want to speak to your supervisor. Why? What I say? I just want to speak to your boss. Whoever you answer to, I want to speak to them. So when the boss finally came in, I said, you guys had me. I just need to think about it. But when it was turned around that I wasn't prepared to take a risk, or that I wasn't going to get on my comfort zone, then really that's where you lost me. And it was such a BS tactic to pull that off. And if you guys are really as great as you say you are, you don't need this as a way to get people in. And of course she cared, because she was on commission. To say, oh, I don't care whether or not you go with me or not. She just spent a couple hours with me, and that was a loss for her. So that's also a technique that people are going to do, is they kind of turn the table and then make it about you, because you don't want to do that. So then now you're being, your values, your morals are being challenged in some way.
So it's interesting as you describe that. She was trying to create an emotional reaction out of you. It just got the wrong emotional reaction.
It did get a reaction. I will admit that.
It got the reaction, but it wasn't the reaction that was required to sell you. And so she didn't establish a relationship with you where that you trusted her. And then, in addition to not establishing a trusting relationship, she tried to create an emotional response from you without creating any comfort, safety, or trust ahead of time. And especially going through like that entire questionnaire, like, they could have, like, there's so many things that they could have done to have much more information and understand what emotional connection that you needed to actually be comfortable with this purchase. But she just failed to do that. So it's an older school aspect of sales where it's like a better, how to describe it earlier, the fear of loss, hope for reward kind of thing. And she thought risk would create fear of loss for you.
Right. Absolutely.
To try and get you to purchase, instead of a newer methodology where create the relationship so that and understand what the person needs and whether it is the right step or not. That's an ethical question for the salesperson. And then from there, creating the emotional environment that the person would benefit from it. And it didn't sound like they created, sure, they've got a binder full of testimonials, big freaking deal, but it didn't sound like they created something that made it look like it was tangible for you to actually succeed.
Yeah. In many ways it didn't. Do you believe people are getting more savvy when it comes to sales? Like, do you think bait and switch still works?
Yeah, I think bait and switch does work, because all you got to do is look at the presidential election right now, with Trump talking, and like one of the best sales jobs I see is Trump baiting it, like he lies, switches it up, people still buy it. So yeah, I think bait and switch does still work. It's very old school, but there's certainly a place for it. It depends on what you're selling as well. I think people have access to far more information now than we've ever had access to. So like even for the dating stuff that you were talking about, you could literally look up testimonials like online. You could check whether these people are legitimate while you're sitting in the room on your phone. We have that access. So the bait and switch becomes harder, but I think because people are smarter now in general, and with more access to information, bait and switch is just one methodology, but there's better methodologies that have developed over time. And so it really depends on who you're interacting with, what it is that you're selling, and what it is that the person wants to purchase, whether they want an experience. It's also demographic related. You look at millennials, they're much more experience oriented. They're good at talking via text versus conversation, but they will have conversations if you start the conversations correctly. They're very great like the people I talk to, they're millennials I speak with, great conversationalists, but they want to have a real reason to have that conversation. If you pull a bait and switch, they're not on to the next one, because they're used to having something else replacing what was there before.
And just for these, in case somebody doesn't know what bait and switch is, do you want to just give a quick explanation of that?
I mean, there's all kinds of different, like in the entertainment world, I see this all the time where you pay for a specific performer. This is more in the DJ on the side of things. And then like, okay, it's my wedding. I've hired a DJ, and then I get to the wedding and it's not the DJ I hired. It's one of their associates. So they're baiting you with something really valuable, and then switching you off and giving you something less valuable in return.
Right. And it's the perception of the value that why people engage in the first place.
Exactly.
Like, it's a hell of a deal. I'm going to get this person. I'm going to get that type of right on that.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't want to, like I said, I don't really want to get into politics, but you see the bait and switch just with, we're going to build a wall. We're going to get Mexico to pay for it. And then obviously none of that stuff happened as the time progressed. There was that bait and switch, but people still, they're okay with it.
Right.
Or a portion of the people are okay with it, and other people are not.
Right. Okay, so now we're going to turn back to the audience and see if there's other questions.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep.
I have a question. Do you think that any of the selling principles or the practices that you talk about and have experience with differ whether you're selling a product versus a service or consulting? It's very broad.
Yeah, it's a broad question. So how do I answer that? So what I teach is very relationship based. And so although it's relationship based, it's also about understanding how the preconceptions and biases of the person you're talking to are influencing them, but also how your own preconceptions and biases are influencing yourself, and then back and forth. It's sort of like, okay, we've got all these things. How do we get out of each other's, all the things that are keeping us apart? How do we get out of each other's way so that we can connect? Now, if you're walking into Walmart and you just need to buy toothpaste, you don't need the relationship in that regard. And so you're looking at like a commodity-based, price-based thing. And so the things that I deal with and I teach people are very good for when you're interacting with people, whether it's by telephone, in person. But it's also understanding that entire relationship structure from start to finish. Now, when I say start, it's before you've even met this person. How, what are you wearing? What are, all those standard things. What's the things that you're giving off? What's the perception that you want to be perceived by? But then when you start the conversation, where does this conversation go? Where are you bridging so that the conversation is not only useful to them, useful to you, but also going in the direction where you want it to go, where you're building that relationship, but also understanding what it is, whether they're even the right person to connect with, to sell something to, or vice versa. Maybe you want something from them. But the only way to really understand that is to be able to interact and guide the conversation exactly where you want it to go. But then also it's about establishing something unique about yourself. Now, when I say unique, it's unique to the conversation. So you're not talking about small talk around you. Hey, what's the weather today? Hey, who won the sports game last night, or whatever that happens to be. It's about establishing something that's outside of the norm of what that conversation would be. Like you go to a networking event, and you can meet 50 people. Everybody's got the same, oh, I got a business card. Oh, I do this. I'm a computer programmer. I'm an accountant. I'm a lawyer. All those kinds of things. But you don't remember anybody because they didn't establish anything unique within that relationship. So one of the things that I teach people to do is I'll do this with everybody right now. So it's I think Luke, you've done this one before. It's a little psychological quiz that I've seen and I read about, and so I want everybody to think about it. If you could choose, would you rather be an astronaut, an accountant, or a actor or actress? astronaut, accountant, actor, or actress. Just make your choice. First one that comes to mind, doesn't really matter. And so now I'll ask you, which one did you pick? Whoops, you're frozen on me now.
Actor.
Stacy, actor. Okay, so an actor, Stacy, is someone who likes to be the life of the party, or the center of attention. Pardon me?
That wasn't me that answered. It was someone else.
Oh, it wasn't you. Oh, that was somebody else. Okay, Stacy, since you asked the question, I'll use you as the example.
Maybe Mary. Okay. All right. I'll answer. The answer is astronaut.
Astronaut. Okay. So astronauts are calculated risk taker. They work really well on their own, but also in groups in collaboration. Does that describe you? A little bit.
Not at all. But
No, not at all. Okay.
That was actually a very hard question for me to answer. I didn't like any three choices. So.
Okay. So perfect.
If you had to choose one, it was the astronaut, right?
Perfect. So I'll go through it very quickly because so astronaut, as I said, calculated risk taker, works well with groups or on their own. Accountants, they like to play by the rules, just follow whatever's going on. They're very by the book. Actors like to be the life of the party. Very good in social situations. And then there's the people who don't actually choose that answer and say, well, I'm none of those things. And I go, those are out of the box thinkers. Don't like to play by any rules. And so typically about 70-80% of the time, whichever one they choose, they'll feel like what I just describes them. And I say I'm an astronaut as well. I'm great working with groups, but I'm great on my own too, and we're a calculated risk taker. And so now I've just had a conversation. And now typically this goes much faster. I'm also explaining it to everybody as I'm doing it. But you can do that in about 30 seconds, and you've got this conversation about being an astronaut, an accountant, an actress that has nothing to do with anything else. But it's allowed you to connect on in a way that had nothing to do with all the small talk. Mm-hmm. So now later on, as you develop the conversation and start talking about that, and you exchange information and networking an event, just text me right now. I'm the astronaut, I'm the accountant or whatever. And suddenly you're different from everybody else. And it took you 30 seconds to do if you do it properly. And so you can go through these relationships and understand if you go from start to finish, all of those things are applicable in different scenarios. And if you go through the entire process and understand the principles and when they apply and when they don't apply, yes, it's applicable to just about anything you sell, depending on the situation. The idea is to be flexible, like you would be with anybody that you've just met, that you're just having a real relationship and a real conversation. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it was interesting. Thank you.
Good, my pleasure. And so the other thing too, I will explain. So sometimes it won't describe their personality at all, and that's okay. And say, tell me a little bit more. It opens up the conversation. By the way, what do you do for work? And now suddenly you can talk about work because you had this conversation about what, this other job, but you're asking them in a neat, interesting way instead of, oh, by the way, what do you do for work? Give me your card. Let's just, not have that conversation or relationship. Mm-hmm. Thank you. Great question.
Thank you.
It also, I think, gives people another entry point on how to interact with others, as opposed to that force, you're on type of thing, right? So I think you make a real difference.
Well, it's about having a conversation like you would with anybody else, except instead of talking about work right away, it's like the dating thing. Instead of talking about the risk right away, actually talking about what were your experiences with past dates. What are the things that are the real problems? You're not a risk taker,
right?
But it's about establishing that conversation in a way that's actually real instead of this forced. Oh, here's everybody can tell when you're faking a spiel, right?
Yeah.
But you can tell when somebody's just that's who they are. This is what their conversation is. Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
What other questions do people have?
What other questions do people always have for me or other people? Sorry.
I'm just waiting for other people. Yeah, Chris.
Yeah.
I hope That's just a comment. Some of what you're just saying, it reminded me of I was in Europe and I went to look at a used BMW, and I'm in this BMW dealership, and you got this guy's like this retired shoes salesman. I think he used to work for the Nike company, and I could tell pretty quickly that he worked for the Mercedes dealership selling cars before he joined the BMW dealership, and he's talking blah 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 blah, and sometimes it's like the Mercedes slips out.
Oops.
Sorry.
That is hilarious. Yeah, I remember dealing with doing some training for a car dealership, and they had done the I can't remember what training program it is, but basically everybody comments on somebody's glasses and the color of their glasses. And so there was somebody sitting in the waiting room, and 8 people had gone by in the wait while he was waiting for maintenance, and complimented on his he was wearing red glasses. And so he got 8 compliments. He's never gotten compliments on his glasses before, and all of a sudden 8 people is like, what the hell's going on? And it's because of this. It's that this is why salespeople feel sleazy and fake, because they're being trained on this like their methodology, instead of actually focusing on the real conversation. You don't have to never compliment somebody, especially as a guy. Like, you can compliment if it's in the right time and the right space. This is like, it's like being in a bar when a guy walks up to a woman at the bar and says, hey, you look great in that dress. I'm like, or hey, you want me to buy you a drink, and that kind of stuff, instead of actually just have like, would you walk up to your mother that way? No, you would have a real conversation with whoever, or a coworker. You'd have a conversation first, and as you're talking, oh, by the way, that dress looks great, or by the way, this is a BMW, not a Mercedes, that kind of thing, right? Like, it's that robotic, mechanical, that's the disconnect that doesn't create the relationship, instead of just being yourself and having a real conversation.
In my in my webinar, which one is it? Developing your elevator pitch. I talk about I talk about this anecdotal story I heard once, where there was some sort of event where it was sales training and also networking, and there's like 900 people in the room, so it was a massive event. And just imagine this day having 100 people in the room. It just seems bizarre now. That's how skewed. Anyway, I digress.
I miss those days. I bet
you. Yeah. But it just seems so odd, right, to think about on that. Anyway, so the keynote speaker started by saying, who here in the room came here to sell something? Put up your hands. Everyone's hands goes up. Excellent. You're all here to buy something. Are you all here to sell something? That's really good. Okay. Now, who here came to buy something? Not a single hand went up. And that is inherently the problem with networking events, is that everyone is such in a hurry to give their cards to people, which is just imagine you throwing it right in the recycle or into the garbage. And it's not about building relationships. It's about numbers and how many business cards you can get and how many people you can get in front of them. And it just, I think people are fatigued from being sold. I think they're getting tired of being sold to. We're sold to all the time. The estimate I heard is by the time the average person gets to work, to the office, pre-COVID, obviously, they can have up to 200 impressions made upon them. An impression is advertisement or some sort of visual, bus stops, billboards, radio stations, TV, Facebook ads, all that kind of stuff, right? Newspapers. So, before you get to the office, 200 impressions, and of those, maybe 2 or 3 will stick. So there's a lot of noise out there, and a lot of people competing for the time. And quite frankly, one of the reasons I started the Here to There show was to have authentic conversations with people, because I think that's what people are missing. I think that's what people are lacking, is some sort of authentic, real conversations where there's not posturing, there's not this kind of intent to, ooh, look how great. It's just like frankly, if it's just 2 guys having a conversation, or me and my guest, that's also good. because it's when we meet in an authentic place, it's a different world.
I think too, like what you were talking about in the room full of 900 people where everybody was there to sell, but nobody was there to buy. It's also about knowing where, like what the expectation is. Like now, if it was 900 people at a trade show and everybody, like the 900 people were there looking for services, then they're there to buy. But if they're there at a networking event, you should be there to develop the relationship. So have the specific purpose in mind too, and be appropriate to that specific purpose. Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
Is everyone familiar with BNI, Business Networking International? Does everyone know about? So, one of the things, and Colin and I were both part of BNI and not different chapters. And actually it was at a BNI golf tournament that we met like 3 years ago, I guess, Colin would be.
Yeah, about there, yeah.
3 years ago, yeah, on that. And then we went and did a one-to-one and whatnot. But the thing that I really do appreciate and do respect about BNI, Business Networking International, is the giver's gain philosophy. And that is that if you help people out, if you really want to help them out, that'll come back to you. And I think that's been said by many people. I don't think it's be of service, bring value, and people will remember, and people will help you out if they can. So, it's something I certainly believe on that. So.
Oh, Chris just said he was referred last Friday to BNI.com.
Okay.
Chris, were you referred to like a specific chapter or to visit a meeting, or what was it that you were referred to?
Oh, I think it was just how to sort of monetize and sell services. Nothing more specific. I don't recall anything more specific than that.
But it probably would have been online, right? You would have to visit online.
Oh yeah, yes, yeah, you're right. So I think not a lot of people are meeting in person these days, which goes without saying.
Well, BNI also is their model for the most part is to meet over a meal, breakfast or lunch. Mm-hmm. So that's even doubly, bad, or not the time to do that on that. So. Cool.
Well, they've shifted to everything online, so all the meetings are online now via Zoom, and so it is. It's actually fascinating how they've actually sort of incorporated and moved everything over. I was actually on a call with the founder, Ivan Meisner, was it last week, 2 weeks ago? Not personally, like it was a group of us, and he was talking about like moving forward, they could see a potential. Hybrid model of in-person 1 week, over Zoom another week kind of thing. Eventually, when things open up, they're not sure how it's going to look. It will be primarily up to members, sort of what that's going to look like in the long run.
Yeah, but talk about a business model that's been cut off at the knees. Like,
they're actually still. I think probably they're at about. I think probably about 80 to 85% of where they were at last year in terms of closed business already this year. Really? So even with everything being, especially with the shift that's occurred, they're doing it. It took a while to sort of, because there was obviously dip and then it's coming back up again. So there is some interesting stuff going on for sure.
Yeah, and because 2020 is the anomaly of 2020, right? And as we're still trying to figure out where the dust is going to land on that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Other questions for Chris? Well, then what we're going to do is one of two things. We're going to transition if there's questions for me. Oh, did somebody say something? I'm not sure.
No, sorry. I think my dad has just dropped something here.
Oh, I see. Oh, okay.
I'm going to mute myself here.
Okay. So, so we can, if there's no questions for Colin, then you can ask me, or, we don't have to go right to the top of the hour. So it's not as if I don't have enough other stuff I can do with my time. So does anyone have any questions, either more questions for Colin or questions on executive coaching or video production or positioning yourself in the market? And that both Colin and I can answer on those. So now's the time to get some complimentary information. Notice I didn't say free, there, Colin. Yeah.
Luke?
Yeah.
Is what you do truly at the executive level, or do you also work with other people as well?
Well, I guess I should get you to clarify what you mean, but at the executive level, because
Well, you're calling it executive coaching.
Mm-hmm.
Does that
Yeah.
mean you really are working at the C level, or are you working in all levels of companies? Are you working with entrepreneurs? What's your story?
I have worked with some C levels. That's not the mainstay. The mainstay is more going to be with the career. When I call myself an executive coach, it's mostly about career transitions and how to basically move people from one point to the other. I've had a lot of success specifically with women. I do know why it is, but that's a separate topic, of when they come to a crossroads in their career and it's like, okay, I don't want to do this anymore, but I don't know what else to do. So it's that idea of, what are your options and why is it that what is it about the past that you've really enjoyed that we can find you doing the same job, a similar job like what really your passion's about and whatnot. So yeah. And I have worked with people to get them interviews and offers with the provincial government here, senior people on that. So I have dealt with that, but it's not at the C levels primarily. It's on that. And there's a lot of different definitions for executive coaching on there too, right? So on that, what's your background?
My background is I'm in marketing communications, and I have both a corporate background and what I would call a creative agency background. So okay. I've worked as both what they're now calling content creator, copywriter, okay, and also as an account manager and I'll just say that, or marketing communications manager in the corporations. So I would say about 2 years ago, I made the decision to stay out on my own rather than looking for another corporate position. Okay. And I'm trying to grow that business here in the greater Philadelphia area. Okay. So that's what I'm doing. And I would say I am, primarily an introvert and enjoy a good story. Like anyone else, but not, not always wanting to be leading that social moment. So it's harder for me. So anything is helpful to hear and learn from. Right. Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting because I just landed a position as the chief marketing officer for Expanse AI. They're out of Ireland, and they're really struggling. They do machine learning and artificial intelligence on that, and it was because I've never held a C-level position, right? And a title's a title, like it's just let's call it for what it is, right? And it's and so at that kind of that level, it's like there's a different optic I'm finding that people have that when you have a chief marketing officer, and now I'm taken more seriously because I have a title. And the skills I still bring are still the same skills, but it's kind of nice to be recognized by someone to have that and whatnot. So, when you for copy, do you have a specific focus?
I'm sorry, what was the question?
For writing copy, do you have a specific focus?
I am comfortable with many industries, but I have probably deeper experience in healthcare. Not pharma, healthcare, okay, and in residential remodeling and commercial building products, food marketing and branding and packaging, insurance, yay.
Right.
And I'm missing one in there. Oh, I'm sorry, higher ed and independent education. Okay.
Okay. I should get you to connect with me on LinkedIn because and I'm not sure when this is going to come about, but there may be, your background might be beneficial for some stuff. So I'm just going to put my, I'll put my, and Colin, this is a good opportunity for you to put your contact information in and to let.
In the chat.
What's that?
You'll put it in the chat.
I'll put it in the chat. Yeah, I'm just trying to think if I'm going I'll put both in my LinkedIn and I I can do both of them on that. So let me just find it here. And then if you connect with LinkedIn or if you send me an email, then that would be good to have, because I can see some copywriting in the future that I'm going to, that.
That'd be great. Thank you, Luke.
Yeah, no problem. So.
Yeah. And
Luke, I just put your.
Did you take care of it for me, Chris?
Yeah, I just put your thing.
Okay, and yeah, and I'm also going to put in a couple bit of information in there, so, and it'll be duplicated on that. Okay, so there is my contact information, my LinkedIn, my website, and so thanks, Chris, for catching that. And so when it comes to, so Stacy, so for going out on your own and whatnot, how are you navigating this, and like, are you finding it really difficult right now during COVID?
I would say almost not any different.
Is that right? Oh, that's curious.
I mean, I don't know if that speaks to me or it's just not any different. You know, I obviously, I have a few clients, but they aren't that active. You know, lots of times it's just one project off. I don't have anybody, I'm not in a retainer relationship with anyone, which is what I need to move towards.
Right.
And so often, you know, they were sort of, they're not literally seasonal, but that's what it felt like. You know, I would get jobs from them anywhere from 1 to 4 times a year. So it wasn't consistent anyway. So that's continued. And some of them are local. One of them is on the West Coast. It's a clinical laboratory that's up and down California. You know, so it ebbs and flows that way. And I need more consistency. What I am doing is working with other people. I will partner up with creative people. And by that, I mean graphic designers, art directors, creative directors. I already have partnerships with them, but they have always relied on me to get the business. And it takes, as you guys probably know, it takes a lot of time and a lot of work. And like I said, I'm not really is anyone really a salesperson? I've met a few. I'm not really a salesperson. So I'm out there, and then I call them up, and guess what? They're happy to work with me. There's a surprise. And so,
right.
You know, I'm probably answering more than what you asked for.
No.
In some ways, Zoom has been a blessing. That's what I wanted to say to you. I mean, at first it was hard, and it's artificial, and yeah, everyone looks the same, and you can't, you know, pick up on something unique about them because you're only seeing this little square that helps you remember them from the other 20 people you met that day. But on the other hand, you can be really efficient with attending meetings, and the idea that you are networking, not to get the sale from the person I'm looking at in the square, but from who they might know and be able to refer you to, is helpful. So I am attending a lot more networking meetings than I would if I had to be driving and scheduling them and looking at traffic and trying to fit them in. And I'm figuring out, you know, what's worthwhile, what's not. Like, this is something different today, and where to go, as well as feeding my head on new ways of thinking about things and not just doing regular networking, you know, in the local area. So that's sort of how it's been. You know, I need time to be writing by myself anyway. So I'm used to working here and, you know, at home. So it's not that different for me.
You know, it's funny because I'll say that I didn't know I was socially isolating for the last 7 years, but that's what I've been doing.
Right, there you go. That's perfect.
And because, you know, there, of course, going to meetings and BNI and other stuff out there and going to networking events, but in many ways, I really do think I've been preparing for COVID in a way I didn't realize, because, you know, today marks my, I don't know, somewhere between 115 and 120 webinars that I've done since March 24th. And those are 90-minute webinars. So, and the reason I could do so many is because I had already so much content already developed that I could just hit the ground running and doing that, and some, you know, some fortunate, some good luck along the way and other things on top of that. So it's like, I never, one of the things I was also struggling with is, what do I sell my services for when I'm in a different jurisdiction? Because really it's just like, how do I know what the market's going to bear in DC versus Seattle? like, on that kind of stuff. So I'm out of my depth in many ways on that, because I've been local. I've been kind of, but now all of a sudden I'm having to, find other places, and I'm getting clients, and I have guys in India I've started working with, and that happened a couple of weeks ago. It was a paid consultation, and they've indicated they're going to have me back. I don't think it's going to go any further than that. But yeah, it's an interesting world that we're living in when it comes to how do we find business and whatnot. And it would seem like you've developed a whole bunch of new skill sets that was born out of necessity.
Yeah.
Not like Colin having to speak to, raisins on the cruise ship, or the, just like, yes, he had no choice if he wanted his job, right?
I have never heard them called raisins, but that's hilarious.
Yeah, I kind of let that slip. I was being politically correct, but yeah, raisins on that. So, yeah, and of course it's interesting, because when I started shooting, because I have a video production company, and I started shooting content, and then then people were seeking me out about how to shoot content, how to shoot videos, and I learned a while ago that if people are seeking you out for something, that they're coming to you specifically, you may have a niche, and that might be a way of pursuing with that. And I got to a point where I was starting to be painfully aware of my lack of skill when it comes to shooting content. And so at that point, what I started doing was I started talking to other video production companies about potential partnerships. And were they ever happy with the concept of me bringing them customers? They loved that the whole live long day, right? And it was just like, sure, we'll find, we've got talent for you, no problem. So yeah, if you bring people to work, they're going to be happy for it, right? But is it reciprocated is, I think, the thing we have to sometimes wonder. So, okay, I'm going to take this opportunity now just to talk about my upcoming, just the webinars that I have coming over in the next 4 or 5 weeks, just so if you guys can know what I have. So just give me a second to set this up here. But this 3 screens is great, but sometimes it's easy to get lost. Okay, I have this. Okay, good. You often see me looking down here. I have my tablet running, so I can see exactly what you guys are seeing on the screen on that. So other webinars that are coming up in the next for November are these ones. So tomorrow I'm having dealing with difficult interview questions, and I'm actually doing this twice tomorrow. I'm doing this in a group out of Philadelphia at 7 my time in the morning, and then I'm doing it at 1 o'clock later in the day. But this is where you get to come and ask me those questions that you absolutely hate being asked. And there's the questions that people just really dislike because they don't understand what they are. Like, tell me about your strengths. Tell me about yourself. What are your strengths and weaknesses? Tell me about critical feedback you always receive. Where you see yourself in 5 years? What are your salary expectations? All that stuff that people struggle with. I'm going to use my background, my hiring background, and my executive coaching background to answer some of these questions. And I kid you not, when I say that I've interviewed and hired more people than I can remember, I'm not joking with that. I had one job where I inherited 5 staff, and within 6 months I had 45 staff. I was always hiring on that. So I will be talking about behavioral-based interview questions and behavioral-based theory, and how to discern when those questions are coming up and how to navigate them, and how to use questions to your advantage, and how to use and when a question is a gift for you to be able to show how you align yourself to that company. So that's happening tomorrow at 1 o'clock Mountain Standard Time. And then 2 days later, I have defining your ideal client, customer, your avatar. And this is depending on the audience, if it's business to business or business consumer, I'll kind of shift who is more in the audience and look at those different things. But it's really about, if you don't have clarity on who you're selling to, it's going to be very hard to solve problems for them if you don't really know what specifically what you bring to the table. And where I see this is people where there's a lot of difficulties with knowing who they sell to is real estate agents. I find are like, especially new ones, they're kind of all over the map, or people in the MLM space, multi-level marketing, such as,
Yeah, for sure.
pardon me?
Oh, I said, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
MLM. Yeah.
Yeah, MLMs, like things like World Financials is one, like in the financial space, and also, or Primerica, those other ones. When I see people out there doing that, there's just like they haven't identified their ideal client. So that's going to be on Thursday at 1 o'clock Mountain Standard Time. Then I have my segment on Fridays, which is called Widen Your Gaze. And as I mentioned, if today was a deep dive, Widen Your Gaze is a bigger picture. And we have this handsome guy going to be here with us on Friday. So if you saw Colin speak today, you learned a lot about what he's about. So please come back and check that out. And then the following Monday, of course, I have the Here to There show. And then next Tuesday, the following Tuesday, November 10th, is how to develop a compelling elevator pitch, part 1, the value proposition. So the focus really is, you're not going to have a compelling elevator pitch if you can't articulate or succinctly in an articulate way say what sets you apart, what's different. So different from you than other services. And I use a lot of images from other people's businesses, either things like signage or billboards or flyers and whatnot. So we look at that, and then we move on to business cards. And the idea here is that I can tell you what a value proposition is, but it's something different to see other people's value propositions, to see how that works and doesn't work. So that's happening on Tuesday in the following week. And then 2 days later, we have part 2, which is creating meaningful connections. And in it, I use a really simple yet elegant model on how to actually look at engagement in a different way. And it's about making those meaningful connections. Everything that Colin is about building those relationships. And that's why we're friends, because we share those common values and whatnot. So, and my guest speaker for Widen Your Gaze hasn't got me their information yet, so that'll be coming up. So, and then I have one on ageism, navigating the potential minefield. And the takeaway from this presentation is that it's pretty simple. You have to give them a reason to see past the ageism. If they can't see past your age, then you might not be helping yourself. And so I look at strategies and suggestions on how to actually make sure that you don't walk into an ageism situation, or see it, potentially go into it with your eyes wide open. And how do you recognize if you might be walking into an ageism, a job where ageism's there? And should ageism go on? No, of course not. Does it go on? Yes, it is. And it's the world we live in. And sometimes ageism may be not a bad thing. As I say in this webinar, I want my firefighters who's going to save my life to be, not my age. I want them to be much younger. I want them to be fit. And so there's a time and place where we need to have people that fit a certain category, and other times are a certain age, and other times it's not. So if you're struggling with how to basically deal with ageism or look at it, please attend this webinar. And then 2 days later, I have Becoming a Subject Matter Expert, how to position yourselves as an expert and industry leader. And this is, I offer 18 or 19 points on how to basically demonstrate what your character is and your expertise and your background, so that you will set yourself apart, especially looking for work. And speaking of looking for work, I do a webinar on video interviews, getting out of your own way. This is not about what to say in a video interview. This is about get everything to when you go join the meeting. Everything from camera considerations to lighting to microphones to your background, virtual backgrounds, our fabric backgrounds, or what do you have on that? So we talk a lot about that, and that's where I answer a lot of questions also. So that's my suite of webinars that are coming up, and we are almost at the end of our time for today's installment of the Here to There show. So any last questions before we give it over to Colin just to give us some parting words that he didn't know he was going to say because I just dropped them on him? Okay. Well, Colin, what are your parting words?
It's a very good on-the-spot question. I think going back to what I said earlier, I hope I left you a little bit better at the end of this than where you were when we started.
All right.
And thank you for joining us.
Yeah. Thank you, one and all. And last chance for a question, comment? A little applause from Chris. Thanks, Chris. Okay, well, I'm going to get Colin to hang on. So we're just going to do a quick debrief on this. And what I'm going to say to everyone else is that you don't have to leave your house, but you can't stay in this room. So thank you all. I seem to do that when you're drinking.
Yeah, you do.
Yeah. So yeah, just get people to leave the room, or don't want to have to boot you out, but I will. So yes, Chris, did you have?
All right, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Thank you, Chris.
Okay. Okay, now I can turn on.